Okay, we're going to start talking about 5.5 trigonometric equations in the pre-calculus textbook. What we're going to do is there's no new identities, but we're going to use our skills of factoring, knowledge of trigonometric identities, and how to solve equations to be able to solve these. Sometimes they'll ask for you to find all solutions. Sometimes they'll ask you to find solutions only on a certain interval. Here in example 1, they just give us an equation and ask us to solve. So I might bring all of my sine of x's onto the same side and move all my constants to the other side. So I end up with -1 equals 2 sine x. Opposite of multiplying by 2 would be to divide by 2, making -1/2 equals sine of x. I teach all math through inverse operations. To get rid of a sine, you take the arc sine. If you take it of one side, you have to take it of both sides. So what angle sine is 1/2? That's what it's asking. What angle sine is 1/2? Pi over 6. The problem with pi over 6 is everything's positive in this quadrant, and I need it to be -1/2. So over here would be negative, positive, negative, negative, and positive, negative. Remember, cosine, sine, cosine, sine, cosine, sine. Sine is the y values. Where would the y values be negative? So this is how 1/6 more than 6/6 would be what? 7 pi over 6. And 1/6 less than 2 pi, 1/6 less than 12/6 would be 11/6 pi. And those are probably your answers on 0 to 2 pi. Let's see what they do. Okay, I noticed from their answers, obviously you don't have this one because it's positive, or this one. These were my two answers. But could I continue, because I believe they ask for all solutions. So if I take this and I go all the way around, I'd be back at the same place, right? So you might add 2 pi, and you might add integer multiples of it. So both of these will have plus 2 pi n at the end of for their answer. Again, that's when they want all the solutions. I apologize, this is not example 2. This is one of the ones that they call a checkpoint. But this would be the answer if I wanted all the solutions. For this is example 2. They give us tangent of 3x equals 1. It says to solve the equation. But this one says 0 to 2 pi. So notice you don't include 2 pi, but you do include 0. Does anybody know what angle's tangent is 1? Pi over 4? I think the tangent of pi over 4 would give me 1. Is the tangent positive in that quadrant? How about down here? Is the tangent positive in this quadrant? Now what happens, guys, is you have to make your angle equal the angle. So that gives me pi over 12. I have to make the angle equal the angle. Multiply by 1/3 and you get 5/12. What could 4 pi over 4 also be called? If I added 8/4 to 1/4, could this also be 9/4? So 3x might equal 9/4 pi. Multiply by 1/3 and you get 9/12. Or 3 pi over 4. Now, are we still between 0 and 2 pi? Yeah. So I have to keep going. What would this one be if I added 8/4 to 5/4? Would that be 13/4? 13/4. If you multiply by 1/3, what's x going to equal? 13/12. Am I to 2 pi yet? No, so I need to continue. Same pattern. 3x is going to equal what now? Well, if you add 8/4 to 9/4, you get 17/4. Multiplying by 1/3 is 17/12. I'm still not at 2 pi, am I? 3x has to equal, if I add 8/4 to 13/4, is that 21/4? 21/4 multiplied by 1/3 gives you 21/12. Is that right?
Yes.
3 goes into 21 7, 3 goes into 12 4 times. Now I'm getting closer, but I think the next one might be too big. If I add 8/4 to 17/4, would it be 25/4?
Yes.
If I make 3x equal 25/4 and I multiply by 1/3, what would you get? 25/12. Is that bigger than 2 pi?
Yep.
So I stop. So it looks to me like there should be 6 answers that are boxed in. Let's see what they get. Okay, do we get pi over 12?
Yes.
Do we get 5 pi over 12?
Yes.
We got 3 pi over 4?
Yes.
13 pi over 12?
Yes.
17 pi over 12?
Yes.
7 pi over 4?
Yep.
Good. So we have the same answers that they have up here, right? So basically we're solving trig equations. Okay, so I need to solve this equation by factoring, but I'm only solving it between 0 and 2 pi. Many times trinomials will factor into the product of two binomials. 2 cosine x times cosine x would give me 2 cosine squared of x. I think your coefficients, A is a 2, B is a 1, C is a negative 1. So if B is 1 and A times C is negative 2, list all your factors of negative 2. Which one adds to 1 would be 2 and negative 1. Because A is not a 1, you have to connect your outsides and your insides. 2 and negative 1. 2 times what is 2? 2 times what is 2? Well, that would be a positive 1. 1 times what is negative 1? 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. Now, if something times something equals 0, one of these has to equal a 0. So 2 cosine x minus 1 equals 0, or cosine of x plus 1 equals 0. You have to isolate the variable. Add 1 and divide by 2. Add 1, divide by 2. Where does that occur? Where is the cosine 1/2 on your trig table? Pi over 3, I think, would make the cosine 1/2. Now, is there any place else where the cosine is positive? Cosine is the x's. So if I had a reference angle of 1/3 pi, what's 1/3 less than 6/3? 5/3? Is that still less than 2 pi? Okay, let's solve this other one. Subtract 1, making cosine of x negative 1. Cosine is the x value. So on a unit circle, the coordinates here are negative 1, 0, cosine, sine. Where is the cosine negative 1 at? pi. And hopefully this is what they have. Let me check.